21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I think you know it much better, but I think when we make an introduction, these kind of numbers will come up, and it's very interesting to give some example, because every company talks, oh, we're selling globally, but what does globally really mean? I mean, it's not difficult to sell to the United States, right? But we sell to countries like Bhutan. We sell to, you name it, to the Central African Republic. We sell to Fiji. We sell to Trinidad, Tobago. That's global for me, any country, because everybody uses water. Water is the source of life, as I always say. I'm Michael Sommer, one of the two CEOs or general managers at Sommer Messtechnik. We are an Austrian company, basically a technology company with the focus on water measurement. Together with the measurement, we also provide services like internet cloud, where all the data come together and the customer can easily access the data, as well as the data collection and data transmission systems. Our company was founded 30 years, almost 40 years, 35 years, I would say, ago, here in Austria by my father, Mr. Wolfram Sommer. And he just retired when the Corona pandemic started. So almost 2 years ago, he retired, and now me and my brother running the business together. My focus is more on the sales, especially international sales, with focus on Asia Pacific, as well as Middle Eastern area. But I also a head of the international sales department, what includes in our case the European market, except of the German-speaking countries, and Americas and Latin America and Africa, obviously. For this, we have specialists all around the world. We have an office in Malaysia. We have an office in Italy that also runs Africa and Latin America. And we have also office in German to support our second sales branch, the German-speaking area, the DACH area, so to say. I myself started in a different company because I personally find it very useful to have different background, not only working in the family business and working with the people that I know already my whole life and know how they think and do things already from my childhood. For me, it was very important to go out and experience different things. And so I started to work in a machine building company, what is totally a different business, right? We produced huge machines and factories for furniture, aluminium, electronic, and steel industry for that matter. I was doing a lot of automatization, so I wrote software for machines so that the machines is actually doing what the operator is input to the machine. So I wrote the control systems and these kind of things. And I traveled the whole world. I don't know, I went to 80 countries in that time. I spent months and months on one project in a certain country, and then I moved on to the next and so on. I did this for about 10 years globally, and then I finally thought I have to settle down, and I moved to China. So from 2011, I lived in Shanghai, in China, working for the same company. And we agreed that I stay there for 2 years, build up the business over there, build up the service and support center over there, and then come back, and I would leave the company and change to our family business. So as life went on, it took me 5 years to cut the connection to my old job, and I'm still thinking a lot about it because it was a great time. It was a great experience working with machines, different people in different markets all around the world. In 2016, I came back to Austria. I started to work in our family business, and actually, I changed from the technology side to the sales side because I said to myself, I need to learn all the aspects of the company, of our family business. And one of the aspects I did not understand was actually sales, because I was more on the technical side. I understood the production and still do, and I understand R&D and D and all these kind of things behind the product, but I never understood sales that much. So I went into some classes and I educated myself a little bit, and then I worked in the sales department as one of the sales engineers, and I got a lot of guidance and still get a lot of guidance from the much more experienced salespeople. And I still think they are much better in sales than me, because as a technician, you always, this is what people say, as a technician, you are a bad salesman because you're too honest, right? You're going to see, first of all, the technical challenges in every project, and the salesman sees the financial opportunities. So it's a learning curve. I really enjoy engaging with the people and help them to find the right product for their need.
If I understood you well, you believe in lifelong learning. What are the important skills for a sales manager on a global level?
For your first statement, definitely. I think everybody who does not believe in a lifetime of learning is crazy, I would say. I mean, you experience yourself every day in life that there are things that you cannot know and you don't know. And so this is a static learning process, all life as well as business. You will never stop learning. Life would be very boring if there would be nothing new. Can you imagine? The whole life ahead, there would be nothing new to learn. There would be nothing new to experience, for that matter, as well. So yes, it's a continuous learning, and you need to be open. Yeah, you need to be open for new things as well. The most important attribute, or what you want to call it, skill for an international salesman, I think it's very difficult because I don't see myself as a salesman. I try to recommend our customer the best solution for them, and try to be very honest with them, especially around the technology and about us. So for me, because I also buy products from other companies to integrate into our systems. So if I see an international sales, I think it's difficult. You need to be open. You need to react on the people. You need to read people somehow. What is very difficult in an email, right? So I like the human interaction. I like to see the faces when you do a presentation, and you see everybody is just watching their phones. You probably have to switch topics, or you have to, go off your standard 15-minute PowerPoint. You have to, I don't know, engage them in a conversation and stuff. So I think you need to be flexible. You need to be very open, and I think if you basically, if these are your core attributes, you can encounter any challenge, and that's important for not only sales. I think for every job, right?
So beside consultative sales approach, what kind of personality traits do you think a person need for that kind of interaction, for that kind of job?
I think what makes global sales very much different than regional sales is that you need to respect the people that you work with a lot more. I mean, not respect in being polite to them, but respect that certain parts of the world have a different ideology and different point of viewing. Yeah, somebody who grew up all his life in Vietnam will look at things very different than a guy who grew up in Brazil, for example. Just two examples, doesn't matter, right? And so that also means that he will approach problems and projects in a very different way. And we can now be angry with our distributors, customers, if something is not as well organized as it would be in Germany, or we can accept the fact and help them to overcome these challenges already in advance or during the project phase. So I think that's a big difference between international and regional sales, because if you only work in one country, for example, me before, I was working mostly in China. I was working Asia Pacific, but 90% in China. Even though they're very different as we in Central Europe, you can adapt to that mentality or to that regional mentality of the country. And that's much easier than doing it on the global scale.
Can you even synchronize with all those different cultures?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, as I said, there's not only cultures and behaviors, it's also ideologies. For me, this was never a problem because I'm generally interested in people. So for me, there is nothing more fascinating than somebody who can tell me a story. And actually not only a story, because everybody can tell a story. I am fascinated by people who are fascinated in something. So if I hear somebody talking about, his hobbies, and he's really into it and he's really fascinating about, he can give you so much more insight about it. And I think that's really nice. And I love to listen to it. And so for me, it's very interesting going into countries that would be, or that are very different to where I come from. So I really enjoy that. I actually, I really love to do that. So the travel part of the job is, for me, is just a bonus on top of having, this opportunity to work in our family business. And what I can say, for me, most important is you cannot go to a country, or you should not go. You can do whatever you like, but you should not go to a country and tell the people what they do wrong in their country and in their culture. That's never a good idea, right? I mean, everybody understands when I come to your place and tell you what to do and what not to do, nobody will be happy. So I think the most important thing is when you arrive in a country is obviously to be polite, but also to ask questions about a topic. So if you don't know, can you talk about a topic? Just ask them politely and try to scratch the surface, because most topics we know from the internet and we know from television. And so we not have all the background information that probably the locals have. Also, in many cases, the locals have a different view on things that we have from the West, or the other people have from the East, and so on and so on. So I think I never experienced anybody getting angry if you ask them a question about any topic, for that matter, as long as you let them state their view and you're not really, tell them this is wrong. You can state your opinion to things, but you should not start a basic discussion with somebody who grew up in that, or an argument in that part of the world, or in that part of this story, for that matter.
How hard for you is to deal with politics on a daily basis?
It's actually really funny for us, because we would do 95% or maybe 90% of our business with governments, whereby we normally internationally work with resellers, distributors, or partner companies. They take the communication with the government, they make the cultural translation, So the companies we work and you should work with, they also do, they not only translate your words, right? Because if you go to a meeting in Japan and you tell them, no, we not want to do that, we want it in another way, you already lost. So saying no in Japan is a no-go. Well, this is what your local partner is for. The local partner will not tell them no. He will tell them something, I don't know. Everything is very good what you said, and we think we have the second best idea, and something like this. I don't know. So we're not dealing directly with the governments in many countries. We still have some countries where we do direct business with governments, government agencies. And what is really funny is that the projects are created by the government. And in many countries, when the election starts, everything comes to a halt. What is something we have never experienced here in Austria, because in Austria, well, investments or projects are not really connected to the current government, because each department is has its budget and plan ahead, and so if there's an election, it does not interfere with current projects, at least not on this small scale how we do it. Well, if you go to countries like Latin America, as soon as the election time starts, everything comes to a halt. The whole government body stops in a way. And then if obviously if the government change, nobody knows what happened to the budgets and what happened to the projects, and they simply, sometimes they disappear, sometimes they get bigger, sometimes they get smaller. Nobody knows. And I think that's kind of something you need to learn, because if you work in industry, most companies will set up a project, they build a new factory, and obviously along the way it can change as well, but it will not be that frequently that it change every day, or every time there's an election, or every political, let's call it a political fart, will influence the project. So that's for sure something very special, working with governments, and also the political landscape in the world. And maybe another thing that most people don't consider working with governments is that many projects have a very long period. So we start working with the government, advertising, let's say, our products, show them what new technologies can do and their advantages. But till the decision is made, until the tenders are written and approved, and then it can take years. It can take 2-3 years. And in most countries, the elections are in between. So there is another stall that influenced this whole period. Of course, some countries are faster than other ones, but I just talk in a general, or in an extreme, let's call it in an extreme term, that happens in most of the developing countries, is that such projects take a very long time.
Is there any business language that is transnational?
I would say, Europe is quite a good model for international cooperation. I mean, I don't know how people from the outside look at Europe. Most of them, or many of the industrial countries, are very big, like United States, Australia, China. These are huge countries, like area-wise, and also, except of the United States and Australia, cultural-wise, they're also a little bit different. But Europe is a melting pot out of different languages, cultures, history, but all out of this history and sometimes terrible history with the wars and conflicts we had over the last 2,000 years. We have managed to build a community that works very closely together. So I think there is, in the academic level, there is a very good exchange in European countries, and that also actually expands very well into the United States and to Australia and any other first world country. And the developing countries, they kind of trying to find, or they try to gain knowledge from first world countries because they invest obviously a lot of money into research and stuff. And so there is an exchange in the academic world, definitely. So there are countries that work together very closely on a government level. Actually, a good example is Canada and the United States. So a lot of things the United States approve will be approved in Canada as well when it comes to environmental monitoring. And I think that's great. Why Canada should, invest the same amount of energy and money if the United States that have the same climate zones or similar climate zones and applications as Canada, why they should do the whole thing again, yeah? So if they can cooperate, and sometimes Canada take the leads and sometimes America take it, I think that's great, and that's how it should be. Many countries look at America and say, okay, if they use it in America, it must be good because they invest the time and money to set certain standards. And there are the development funds and development projects where certain countries send experts to countries, to developing countries, to help them to establish their system, especially when it comes to water and weather management. And I think that's also very useful. In many ways, it's maybe an overkill for very developing countries, who are kind of, at the first stage of automatic monitoring, because the technologies that are out there are actually so high that it can be a real challenge to understand all the different things and to get it together and have the people who can maintain it and service it in the long run. But in general, it's quite good work that is done from UNPD, what is United Nations, or the different country funds like the German GIZ, Gemeinschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, what is an industrial development fund, or the Asia Development Bank. They're doing quite a good work around the world and help countries to build up their infrastructure and resilience against natural disasters and natural influences.
Austria is relatively small on a global scale. Relatively small.
Definitely, yeah.
So what kind of challenges are you dealing with regarding coping with bigger countries such as States or India or China or whoever?
Being in Austria, I would say, is a clear advantage for our company. I mean, we are a very small nation. We have 8 million inhabitants, and we have, I don't know the exact size of Austria, like the area size, but it's small. It used to be a huge empire in Europe, more than 100 years now ago. But coming back to being an advantage, so I think what is fantastic in Austria is, I mean, for us as a company, is the pool of talents that we can, choose the people from. What is also our biggest problem is that we cannot get enough people that as we would wish, So before Corona, the unemployment rate in Austria was one of the lowest in the European Union. And that basically meant that everybody has a job, especially in this field where we working in technology, software engineers, hardware designers for electronics, technical salespeople, all these kind of things. But even in the creative part, marketing, these kind of things, it's very hard to get staff, people. And people are the core of every company. And so it's very challenging to find not only the right skill sets, because that's one thing. You need to find the people who can obviously do the job. But I think it's also very important that you find people who share the mentality of your team. Yeah, it does not make sense if somebody comes to the to the introductory, what do you call this? When they come and you talk to them and they say, well, my highest priority is salary. Well, I mean, that's okay. everybody needs to live and everybody needs to earn money. That's fine. But in our team, the focus is much more on developing together a product that does something good in the world. And so maybe some person like this does not fit that well. So it's very hard to get technical people or to get engineers um, to fill all the positions that we have, and that's not only a problem in our case. Actually, Austria is a producer of a lot of high technologies. There's a lot of pharma industry. There's a lot of machine building here. We actually have a very big automotive sector, even though we do not produce any cars anymore. Like, we produce cars, but not under an Austrian brand. There's some Aston Martins, Mercedes, BMWs. Uh, I don't know what else or they are made in Austria. Also drive trains and engines and these kind of things. So there's a very diverse industry, but a lot of them is based on technology, either biotech or like electronics, software industry, these kind of things. And we also have a couple of very famous companies that operate out of Austria that are market leaders. Some of them are huge and famous, as I said, but some of them are very small companies. They're leading the world in a certain niche market. And actually, our Chamber of Commerce has an expression for this. We call it the hidden champions, because there are so many Austrian companies that have a product nobody else ever dreamed of build, and they do it in a certain fashion that no other company can uh, um, even produce a copy of it that only works half as good. So I think that's the advantage of living in Austria, or having the company in Austria. Obviously, taxes, for companies are quite high and things, but I'm not going to complain, because I think in return, the citizens of the country do get a lot of services. I mean, from healthcare to free education, to many other things, the infrastructure. I mean, our highways are pretty nice to drive, I have to say. All these kind of small things that everybody think is normal, but you only see if you leave your country and see how other places do things. You really appreciate what you have at home and why you pay maybe higher tax as in other countries. So I'm not I'm not against paying tax. I think if the tax are used right, then it's fine. Coming back to China and India, they start to produce their own technology in I think in many different fields. And I think their only incentive to buy their products is the price. And of course, price is important because it's the first thing most people look at, and especially when it comes to government tenders, that the decision is made about the price and not about the quality and the extras. So I think this is that's not a good solution. Um, and we see this with a lot of infrastructure projects that have been started in Europe and either didn't finish or have such a bad quality, built by companies who are not based in Europe. I don't want to call any names, but so I think that's not really the way to go. In our industry, actually China is one of our key markets, because the Chinese government, and with the developing of the middle class in China, has rethinked a lot of their environmental policies. So when I was living in China, there was already a huge transition from being the biggest polluter to the biggest investor in renewable energies. And you can feel it. I mean, when you've been to Shanghai in 2005, there was a lot of smog and there was a lot of clouds, and basically you never saw the sun. Now, actually, going to Shanghai, the weather, you can see the sun probably 8, 9 months a year, compared to other places is not much, but compared to never, it's quite a lot. So the improvement is there. The people can see it. The people can feel it. It will take many more years till everything is cleaned up, but that also gives an opportunity for technology. So China does a lot, and I think the biggest reason for it is simply because the middle class has grown so fast and so big that the people demand clean environment. If you look at very poor countries, let's say some African countries, the citizens have totally different concerns than people who live in let's call it the middle class. Because if your biggest concern is how to get every month a paycheck, how to feed your family, and how to get shelter for your family day in day out, you're not really concerned about the water quality of the river next to you or the air quality that you and your kids breathe. But if all these necessities in life are established, so if you have an apartment, you make more money than you spend, or let's say at least the amount that you spend, you also can make, your priorities will shift, and you will consider or you will think about yourself and your family in a different way or in a different light. And I think this we have seen very clearly in China. This was a very fast transition also because China is, growing in such a rapid speed, and having a much bigger middle class. Also, the government feels the pressure from the people to, invest in technologies to switch off coal power plants, to well, at least resettle steel plants from urban areas to areas where the people are not that much affected. Of course, it's a process, and all of our first world countries are very fast in pointing the finger on China or other developing countries and tell them what they do wrong. But we are not really better, because in the time where we or our countries developed from being an agricultural country through the industrial revolution to the first world country as we call it now, we also polluted everything and everybody. So it's just a progress, I guess. The main focus of the Sommer company is to develop sensors and systems to measure water. Water is our most precious resource, and there is no life without water. And we have made it our target of the company to measure water in different states. So we develop sensors and systems to measure water inside the snow. So our sensors can measure how much water sits in the snowpack, and when does the snowpack start to melt. And then we make sensors that measure the water coming down the mountain, in the rivers, and the amount of water in the rivers. So saying that, it is very, very important to understand that a lot of our rivers worldwide are sourcing in snowmelt. In general, most of the snow cover is on the northern side of the planet. The southern side of the planet has actually also quite a lot of snow, but it's more concentrated, like in Patagonia and like that. But the northern hemisphere, a lot of big cities and a lot of industrial areas are very heavily influenced by snow and snow melt. And so looking into the snow is a very important part for the whole water economy. And so it was always a very big reason for us, especially because we come from a snow-covered a snow-covered country with high mountains, and to also have a look not only in the rivers, also to have a look into the snow, to make proper planning and to predict what is going to happen in summertime. So I have a good example from Argentina, for example. There is the city of Mendoza, what is the biggest wine producer in Argentina. We all know Argentinian wine is very famous and it's very nice. And the area of Mendoza does not have rain. I mean, there is no rain. But the grapes, they still need water to grow, obviously. So all the water that is used for agriculture in that area comes from snow melt. And now with our instruments, the government knows during the winter time how much water is stored in the snowpack and when does the snow melt starts. So they can already do planning during the winter time how to distribute, store, and how to handle all the different waters, or actually how to distribute it between the different water stakeholders. What is not only agriculture, yeah, we need to be careful that we not waste our water on one sector. Also, the people need to drink. There is also the industry who does need water and so on. So measuring water is a very important task that is widely overlooked by many countries. Um, I think it's very fascinating that the place where we come from in Austria, we not really have a problem with water, and a problem mean we have enough water, so we don't have really droughts for that matter. Well, it probably come in the future with climate change, but currently we have actually enough water, and we not have too many floodings. Obviously, there are some, and we have just seen floodings in Salzburg a couple of weeks ago. But in general, this gives the government or the people kind of the mentality. Why should we measure if there is no problem, right? So we have seen this with the occurrence of more and more flooding, that measurement and learning about the nature is getting more and more important. So, for example, in the floods that occurred in Germany just recently, there have been a lot of measurement stations also there, and equipment, and also the information that heavy rains come in. The information have been out there, but just measuring and providing the information in the internet to the public is just one part of the whole thing. Yeah, you have to be sure, or you have to have the right structures in place to bring this information to the people who need it. Like if we go back to the disaster, as I mentioned, the information have been there, and actually our German office is basically in the area that was heavily affected by the flooding, and our technician or our staff, they knew there is a very high flood risk because they do this every day. They are specialists in that matter. But the average citizen who is not a meteorologist, a hydrologist, or even does not really have technical understanding, or if we think about senior citizens, they have quite a hard time to interpret, the data that have been provided. And so I think that will be a big challenge for the future in order to bring information to the local people in time and especially reliable, because also in most of these huge disasters, the internet and telephone lines do not work anymore. So how do we warn the people in time and reliable? So, and there are actually a lot of technologies from the past that still works, like simple sirens. I mean, simple is always relative, but having sirens that can run independently and activated via radio signals, or in the future probably via satellite communication, I think that's a pretty good way to go. And that's also a big part of our company. So um, the customers come to us, they have certain issues, and we not only recommend them, look, you install here a sensor and you measure your water flows, and then we leave and leave them alone. No, actually, we want to give them more. We want to give them information of what are your options. So, and that's probably also different between, if you look at many of these young startup companies that have great technology and that they learn the newest technologies in university or wherever, and then they come and they make a huge nice PowerPoint presentation, and then they say, wow, that's the way to go. But what they're missing in many cases, I don't want to put everybody in the same basket, is a lot of experience. And as I mentioned before, sometimes older technologies can be the solution to problems that we actually have since thousands of years. I mean, flooding is nothing new. Probably the frequency and the severity of the floods are new, at least for our generation, because we didn't experience it before. And so having a partner like us to overcome these challenges, I think is very, very important. And we also work together with different, engineering companies, with different geologists, hydrologists, in order to provide the best services. So if we cannot, recommend you the right solution, then we for sure have somebody in our company network that can give you the right answers to your questions. And this is what we try. We really try to help the people with our technology and our knowledge that we have gained over the last 30 years of doing warning systems and measurement equipment all around the world. As I have mentioned before, water is our most precious resource and obviously source of life. Water is causing a lot of conflicts, not only disasters, also human conflicts between each other. Some countries control the water resources of other countries and use that as pressure on that country, on their neighbors, to gain certain targets that they have set themselves. What is not a very good situation, obviously. And also here, measurement and accurate and high quality data will be essential to make the right decisions in the right time, not only for disaster management. Obviously, it's a very pressing matter, but also, knowing more about your most important resource. So if you're interested in learning more about the water measurement, the technology behind it all, please contact us either directly or check out our homepage on www.sommer.at, AT for Austria, summer like the most beautiful time of the year, or send us an email to office@sommer.at. We're very happy to answer all your questions. And yeah, I hope you had a good time.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.